I am. That's correct. Okay, so this is the last of our month of inebriation. So I'd like to thank all the speakers and all the attendees. I think we have another 51 people online today, which is great. Um, and we're rounding it out with a final presentation by Kent Waldeck. I would ask that each one of you please mute your microphone, please, so that we don't have background noise. And also, one other quick thing, I wanted to thank all the people that have been involved in tasting. And especially this time around, Olivia Pylon actually met me in Walgreens parking lot last night to give her samples. So, I mean, we've gone above and beyond on this one. So really appreciate everybody that was involved. So Kent Waldeck. Crafted's story starts in North Carolina, where Kent Waldeck lived for nearly a decade prior to returning to his home state of Ohio. During this time in North Carolina, Kent started home brewing, and just like every other young home brewer, was absolutely convinced that one day he'd open a brewery. It was during this time that he came across Mead and Charlie Papazian's joy of home brewing and made his first batch with honey purchased from a beekeeper selling at a roadside shop near Blowing Rock, North Carolina. It was a rough but super enjoyable experience. What started as a random experiment turned into more and more meads being produced with greatly improved results. In late 2008, Kent and his wife returned to Ohio to be closer to family and start their own family. Although relocating for a job in Cleveland, he was itching to start his own venture. That venture, though, was to start a meadery instead of a brewery. It was a niche that he recognized as an opportunity. Between 2009 and 2012, Kent would plan, implement, and self-fund Crafted Artisan Meadery, with Crafted ultimately opening its doors to the public in 2012. Crafted was and still is a home-based business, literally right out behind his home. 6 months after opening for business, their meads were being sold and distributed in 4 states. They added sessions, which he'll talk about today, to the mix in 2013, which allowed them to expand the range of meads they offered, and their breadth of category became a cornerstone of their vision and mission, making a range of styles pushing the boundaries of the category. He continued to work full-time until 2015, when he was laid off and forced to jump headfirst into Crafted full-time. With time, Crafted's focus has shifted to other popular session meads, where he consistently innovates with fresh styles and themes. Kent believes in humility and not taking himself too seriously, but taking the quality of his meads very seriously. Lessons he hopes to teach his 3 sons. A team of dedicated employees with a shared vision has helped propel Crafted on their journey along the way. It's tucked away in rural Ohio, making some of the best mead in the world off the side of a home for over 8 years and counting. It's been a wild ride, but we can't wait for what the future holds. He can't wait for what the future holds, because he believes in what's going on. It's going to be even wilder. So with no more, Kent, take it away.
Thanks, Kurt. First, thank you for the invitation to come speak with you guys today virtually. I appreciate it. I see some familiar names on the attendees list, so it's good to see some of the folks again. Yeah, we can talk about mead. So it sounds like you guys have had a great month. I know some of the owners of some of the producers that you've spoken to this month for quite some time, specifically Middle West Spirits. One of the founders of Middle West and I actually worked together in North Carolina for about 4 years before we both returned to Ohio to start our mutual alcohol businesses. I don't know what that says for Ingersoll Rand as a company that they drove us to do such a thing, but here we are. So I'm gonna try to keep it, I know we have a limited time, so I'll keep it as condensed as I possibly can, but I'll try to make this as super informative as I can as well. We'll talk about what the heck is mead. I know that might be a question some of you have. We'll talk about the styles and where it fits in the world of alcohol. And then we'll talk a little bit about Crafted and our story and our journey as a company and kind of how we ended up where we're at. So first off, a mead is technically, legally, we're considered a honey wine, but we really kind of operate independently of wine. We're not truly what I would consider a wine. The best way I can explain it is beer is made from malted grains, hard cider is made from apples, wine is made from grapes. Mead, our primary fermentable, is always going to be honey. So just as in with beer, you can have different hops and malts and things going on to give you different colors, flavors, aromas, and all sorts of things. Just as in with grape wine, where you can have different varietals and the terroir that comes with them, and Cabernet and Chardonnay and all that, we can use different varietals of honey to achieve the same result. So you could take a honey such as Tupelo honey that is very light and delicate, and then the contrast to that would be a buckwheat honey, which is dark and malty and minerally and really bold. And all of these honeys are derived from different nectar sources, right? And so wildflower honey, which is predominantly what we use, is gathered from bees that are just foraging everywhere. Varietal honeys are where the bees are foraging from a very distinct nectar sources. And how they'll do that is they'll haul the hives in when the orange blossoms, for example, bloom on the trees. And when the blossoms fall off, they'll pull the hives out, and they can be rest assured that they have a pretty high blend of orange blossom honey. Of course, they can't control where all of them go, but it's pretty assured that they've got a good blend of orange blossom. So that's how they do that. We go through about 35,000 pounds of honey a year. Most of our honey, we always get the question, most of our honey always comes from central Pennsylvania. We have used local honey packers and honey producers, especially when we were starting out, but those honeys are, those producers really, we just couldn't find anybody that could keep up with what we needed when we needed it. So we get it from a company called Dutch Gold Honey in Pennsylvania. The honey that we use predominantly is a wildflower honey, but in addition to just wildflower honey and the honeys that we use for making our meads, we can use any other type of ingredients like fruits, herbs, spices, all sorts of different things to also build out that mead. And so as you can see, or if those of you that got samples, Bananas Foster Forever is one of our meads. This is banana, honey, coffee bean, caramelized sugar, vanilla bean. So we really pull in a whole host of things, and it's really kind of a culinary thing with how we do things, trying to create these recipes and build these flavors. And that's kind of what we're known for is, for example, we're getting ready to redo a collaborative mead we did with Earthquaker Devices, which is a guitar pedal company in Akron. That's a cherry cheesecake mead that we used over 150 pounds of cream cheese powder and 100 pounds of graham cracker in. And just to give you an idea of our sizes of batches, we're doing about 30 barrel batches of these, which are equivalent to about 1,000 gallons. At a high level, you have two different broad types of mead. You have what we'd call session meads that Kurt mentioned earlier, and then you have what we'd call still meads. Still meads are going to be corked. They're going to be higher ABV, like 12% alcohol and higher. They're going to, as much as I hate to compare mead to wine, they are more like a wine. And then you have the session meads, like I just showed you, which are lower alcohol, carbonated, and in a crown capped bottle instead of a corked bottle. These are all typically around 6% alcohol. And just to give you an idea of how mead fits into the world of alcohol, even though we're technically, as I mentioned, a winery, we currently sell our meads in, I think it's around 13 states. And from Manhattan to Florida to Wisconsin and anywhere in between, really up and down the Eastern Seaboard. And they're all sold by craft beer wholesalers. So you'll find them on the beer tour at the Winking Lizard. We've been written about in Draft Magazine. So it's this weird kind of spot that we filled, this niche, where we are a winery, but we kind of play inside the craft beer segment. And that's really a large part of our audience, but we also, wine drinkers are along for the ride too. Mead is gluten-free. We do use gluten-based ingredients in some, as I mentioned, the graham cracker, for example, but for the most part, they are gluten-free. And I apologize for any background noise. We have a customer that just came in right around the corner. So, But yeah, so mead is a very versatile beverage. It's, you know, a lot of people will ask when it can be drank, when it should be drank, how it should be drank. There's no real rules. It's however you enjoy it. And you know, a lot of our styles tend to be sweet. But mead does not have to be sweet. It can be anywhere in between, from dry to sweet, semi-sweet. It just so happens, you know, most of our styles are medium sweetness to sweet. So yeah, that's kind of the what mead is, and the different styles. We could go down this whole path of the historical names, such as metheglin, which is a mead made with herbs and spices. Maybe we'll talk about this a little bit. Metheglin is a term for a mead made with herbs and spices, and it's derived from the Welsh term for medicine, so metheglin, medicine. And they believed that, you know, that was what, you know, if you had something wrong, you drink a little mead and it'd cure what ails you. We don't claim any medicinal benefits to any of our products, but it might make you feel better. A traditional mead is a mead made with just honey. A hydromel is a low ABV mead. A capsomel is a mead made with peppers. A melomel is a mead made with fruit. All of these terms are pretty historical, because I mean, mead's been around for 9,000 years. That's the earliest evidence they found of it in China, in archaeological digs, in pots. They found, you know, the trace elements of it. You know, so that's an idea of the age of the category. Every major culture throughout civilization has had mead as their predominant beverage at one point or another. If you go to some parts of Eastern Africa, like Ethiopia, Kenya, mead is still tej, is what they would call it, which is mead made with the bark of a tree. It is still widely made and consumed. Most Ethiopian restaurants will have you know, a live ferment going in the back, maybe under the radar, and it's very much a historical beverage. But what we are doing, and what you can see from this renaissance of mead that's been happening over the past 10 or 12 years, is really kind of dusting it off and bringing it into the modern era. You know, what they theorize is that as trade became more prevalent, you know, at one point in time, the predominant sweetener was honey. And that's what, you know, bees were kept for. It was not just for, you know, I mean, honey's delicious, but they would use that as their primary sweetener instead of cane sugar. But once trade became more commonplace, and cane sugar became the more commonplace sweetener, which it's easier to, you know, handle sugar cane than it is a hive of stinging insects. You know, honey production fell, it declined, and mead became what, you know, we've heard, the nectar of the gods, the drink of royalty, because it became this really high premium type product that wasn't as prevalent. And now as you get into today, you know, we were, at the time in 2011, 2012, we were one of a few hundred meaderies in the country. I would wager that number's probably up around 800, which is still way smaller than our craft beer brothers and sisters, but it's also, you know, it's a good place to be. It's a niche, and that's where I like to play. Yeah, it's exciting. We get to really kind of innovate, but we're also at the same time innovating with the oldest beverage known to man, the oldest alcoholic beverage known to man. A lot of times people will ask what a historic mead would be like. You know, it would be probably not very good. They didn't have isolated brewer strains of yeast, so they were depending on wild yeasts from, you know, nature, just collecting inside a watered down honey, and it would have been very low alcohol, probably 3% alcohol. And it probably fits into that same category of beer where they say that, you know, it was really a way to have what would be a more sanitary beverage than just water. It was a way of purifying water almost, because you knew that a little bit of alcohol in there would kill the heebie-jeebies, to use the technical term. But yeah, so that's a bit about mead. We'll kind of transition a little bit and talk about us and how we started the meadery. I am a graduate of Rootstown High School. I think I saw a familiar name on the attendees list that I know from back in the 95, 96 era. I attended Kent State University, and I moved to North Carolina shortly after graduating from college, and I got a job with Ingersoll Rand, which is a large industrial manufacturing company down there. And that's really when I started. I was a marketing director for them. And I started playing around with Mead, and I met my wife, who was from Hartville, and got her, somehow convinced her to, one, marry me, and two, move to North Carolina. And then around 2008-ish, we moved back. I moved back and spent a brief stint with American Greetings in Cleveland in product management. I was with Gojo for a short time in product management in Akron. And then actually went back into the compressed air industry, which is where what I did with Ingersoll Rand, and worked for a company based out of Shanghai. I worked remotely before it was the hip thing to do. I worked remotely for a company that was based out of Shanghai called Curtis Toledo, FS Curtis, at operations in St. Louis. And so for a long time, I was splitting my 2 weeks in Ohio, 2 weeks in Missouri, and that got old pretty quick. And honestly, around the time that it fell apart, it was really a bit of a blessing in disguise, and that we had already started this as really a glorified hobby. And I was able to really kind of take what I'd learned over the years in product management and marketing roles, and both wholesale and manufacturing and Lean Six Sigma and all those things, and then also take my consumer goods experience and really kind of channel that together into what I do now, which it's been great, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It has its challenges for sure, especially this past year. But it was also a fantastic exercise in just being nimble as a business and adjusting and adapting as we worked our way through the year. And with the pandemic going on, it was good. We're in a healthy spot. We were able to lower our costs and really balance that with everything going on, and we're poised to come out of this and have another really a growth stage out of this. We, for the longest time as a company, we are still operating off the side of our house. We're in Suffield, right off of State Route 43, straight down the road from Kent. And we've been kind of tucked away here, and we've added on. But it's, this running out of our house is growing a little bit old. It has its pluses and minuses, but when I'm trying to take my kids to school and we have 53-foot trucks parking out front, we need more space, and with the production increases we've seen in our growth, we really desperately need more space. And so it's been about 2.5, 3 years ago, we actually had made a decision that we were going to move the entire business to Asheville, North Carolina. And we spent maybe 2 years working with property brokers and developing our business plan and working with the SBA down there, and really had a package that we were ready to execute. But it was just, it got the market down there. If anybody's familiar, Asheville is Beer City, USA. I mean, the South Slope of Asheville is full of world-renowned craft breweries. Sierra Nevada's down there, New Belgium. It is the place to be, and we were really, in hindsight, a bit late in our effort. And so it got to a point where I didn't feel comfortable with the risk and how much we would have to extend to make things happen there. And last September, we made the decision that we're staying here. Our kids were getting to be a little bit older in school. My oldest son, I have 3 boys, 4th grade, he's in now. And we just said, you know what? And it was very deep breath, sigh of relief kind of decision. We felt at peace with it, and it was great. And then with everything again that's happening this year, it was, oh man, what a bullet we dodged if we would have been in the middle of trying to make that happen, and a move of not just the business but our family and everything else. And it was last fall, shortly after we made that decision, that we started looking at another property that is here close by where we're at now. And that's been a work in progress now for about the past year. And I can't share any details yet, but hopefully here within the next month and a half, 2 months, we'll be prepared to make an announcement of project that I'll be really excited to dive into. That'll be both a renovation. It'll give us 12,000 square foot instead of 2,500 square foot, and the ability to have a full tap room with, you know, guest beers on tap and food, and really kind of take things to the next level. So that's a bit about us and me. And you know, this is very much a family business, and even though we've grown over the years, I mean, we're still very much a small business in terms of our, you know, peers in the beer industry. But for me, and you know, coming from working for, you know, $13 billion a year company like Ingersoll Rand, it's never been about getting big, because it's like the bigger you know, it's been about being able to eke out a living that allows me to provide for my family and be able to spend time doing the things I want to do with them, and being a part of that and not being tied to this big behemoth of a business. It's just about comfort. And sometimes what I found is there's a nice happy spot in not, you know, operating at that level, that, you know, bigger problems come with bigger things, right? So yeah, at that, you know, I think I hopefully left enough time to answer any questions. If you guys want to open it up for questions, and I can answer any questions about Mead. And I know we had some tasters that went out, so I'll tell you briefly, real quick. I know some folks got our Bananas Foster Forever, which is a Bananas Foster mead. Pollination, which is a dry hopped blackberry mead with cinnamon and Cascade hops. Dragonheart, which is cherry and raspberry and apple cider, and that cider is actually sourced locally from Haas Apple Orchard over in Canfield. And then our peanut butter Bananas Foster Forever also snuck its way out too, which is a peanut butter variant of those. And just real quick, I'd be remiss to not mention, Bill had mentioned earlier, we also have this project that my son, I can briefly hit on that. He, since a very young age, took notice of homelessness, and whether it was trips to Chicago or wherever we've ventured off to. And it became obvious to us that it was something that really was something that concerned him and he was passionate about. And I helped him with the aid of our suppliers, Kaufman Container in Cleveland, Big Bridge Design in Asheville, who's our design firm, and other folks, Blue Label Printing that does our labels. We put together this Provision honey, which is local honey, and it 100% of the proceeds go to charities. And you know, he sold quite a bit of this honey this spring, and he made his first donation to the United Way of Portage County for their COVID-19 relief fund. And I think, you know, by the end of the year, we'll be ready to do that again. So that's another little thing we've been working on as well. So at that, I'll open it up for questions or any feedback from the tasters.
Great program, Ken. I think what we'll start out with, this is Randy Smith, President. I think what we'll start out with is having our tasters kind of chime in on what they thought of the, so go ahead, tasters.
Olivia, do you want to start out and give us some feedback from what you tasted?
Yeah, so to start, I don't think I'd ever had mead before, so I really wasn't sure what to expect, but I would always choose wine, so it was kind of like wine with some extra jazz put into it. I really enjoyed the banana one, and for everyone who hasn't tried it, what it kind of tasted like, and I hope this does it justice, but it tasted like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with bananas on it. And the honey one, for everyone who didn't try it, tasted like if you ever put honey in your tea, like in blackberry or raspberry tea, and you get that like last sip with the honey that's at the bottom of the cup, that's what it tastes like. But it was all really good. It was better than I had expected, to be honest. I thought mead was going to taste kind of like hard alcohol, so.
Yeah, and we have lots of preconceived notions about mead, and I think people think that we all sit around either wearing like suits of armor and, you know, going out and role playing and, you know, fighting battles on the weekends or something. That's not what we do. So yeah. And it doesn't have to be boozy and sweet. Now there are some out there like that, right? But yeah, cool.
I have a question. How is your product distributed? How do you get it to those 13 states that you sell it in?
Yeah, so we work with wholesale craft beer distributors. So we work with large operations such as Cavalier Distributing that is here in Ohio, that has operations in Ohio, Florida, and Indiana, and even parts of Kentucky, to a smaller distributor that operates in North Carolina and South Carolina called Advantage, that is a wine and beer distributor, to much smaller operations that cover specific regions, like the distributor we work with, who's a beer distributor in Michigan called Oath Distributing, covers the Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, and Detroit metro area, that kind of area there. And really they have sales forces of, you know, depending on the scope and scale of the distributor, anywhere from 3 to 150 to 200 reps that go out and are tasked with selling our products, and not just ours, but, you know, in some cases 300 other brands as well. And so, you know, they're coming and picking product up via LTL, which is, we had a shipment go out just a little bit ago this morning to our Wisconsin distributor, which is a couple pallets of product, and that'll go up, and then they work that out into the marketplace. And that's really been a whole other, you know, being able to pull from my background, where, you know, in Ingersoll Rand, we worked with independent distributors that sold multiple brands of compressors and parts and accessories. And so there's always this, you know, staying top of mind and creating mind share and building those relationships with distributors are the things that we do, especially because we don't have, you know, we're in that same catalog with, you know, Dogfish Head and, you know, some of these brands you may have never heard of, like, you know, Stone Brewing and Lagunitas, and some of these guys that have much bigger pocketbooks than we do. You know, so we have to really be good at building those relationships to stay top of mind, you know, and get our products out to the market. Hopefully that answered your question.
Where can we get your product locally?
So locally in Kent, I always recommend Tim at the Kent Cheesemonger. He's been a great partner over the years, and also 101 Bottles, Giant Eagle, Acme, the new Riverside, I forget what it's called now. You have to forgive me, but it's across the river. That was the Riverside that burned at one point, and they're running that again. And there's yeah, and of course you're not going to find out. Cheesemonger always has a great selection of our stuff. 101 Bottles does as well. At the chain accounts such as you know, Acme, Giant Eagle, you're going to find single SKUs just because it's chains and authorizations, and it's a mess. And of course, we are just down the road, 15-minute drive. We have more on the shelves than any of those places, but we encourage everyone to always support our resellers. But you know, we have a tap room, albeit very small, that is open full bore right now with the appropriate social distancing and everything. And we're open for bottle sales Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And then our tap room is open from 5 to 9 on Fridays, and noon to 9 right now on Saturdays. And as I mentioned, hopefully we'll be sharing some details on a much more robust tap room presence here in the near future. So,
Kurt, Tom Hatcher, I have a question about the mead itself. You've mentioned that you have various types of mead, but is honey an ingredient of all of them?
yes.
Or just the honey meads?
Yeah, so it's an ingredient on all of them. So a mead would not be a mead without honey, so it would be something else. So we use sugar in a few of them, but to give you an idea, when we make 1,000-gallon batch of this Bananas Foster Forever, it has about 150 pounds of sugar added after the fact, and that's really just to give it a caramelized, because we caramelize it, kind of a flambe to help build the flavor of this, right? But yeah, it's always going to have honey. Any other questions?
I think that Kent had offered to stick around for a little bit after the responder if there's more questions, but we're running out of time here. So, and Brad also, Brad Earhart was one of the tasters. So, Brad, if you're on, we'd love
Yes,
to
I am.
tasting and then your response, please.
Thanks. And before I start, I had, the first time I had one of your meads was at Brico's.
Nice.
And it was the Banana Fosters. And I tried the 3 meads just like Olivia. I had the Dragon Heart, the Pollination, and the PB Bananas Foster. And of the 3, I liked the Pollination best. I thought it was drier, so a smoother taste. I drink all 3, but I would pick that one of the 3. I think as you know, the presentation was a great overview of mead. I think if you don't all have a basic understanding of mead now, you never will. I love the history. I am a history major, and I thought that was really fantastic to hear more about the background. And I'm glad you guys just decided to stay in Suffield Township here in Portage County. So thanks for coming.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so I think we're going to officially end the meeting at this point, but as Ken has said, he'll stick around for a few more questions. So if you got the time, hang around, but otherwise we're adjourned.